The NFL Draft is 1 month from today. April 24th, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Lambeau Field.
We were trying to figure out, has there ever been a draft on a field?
Ooh, I don't think so.
Yeah, this is pretty unique.
And it's Mock Draft Monday on HQ Spotlight. We do it each and every Monday. This one is extra special. Chris Hassel, Amanda Guerra, Danny Kanell, and Pete Prisco, who put together his very first mock.
Because I'm a big believer in putting mocks out before free agency is pointless because you don't know what holes you have or what holes you filled. And so everybody who does them, I salute them all. Everyone, Ryan Wilson, all those guys, Josh Edwards, every one of them. But they really don't matter until now.
And that was actually like one of the first sentences in your article, by the way. You can check out Pete's entire mock draft on CBSSports.com. So we're going to go through all 32 here. Let's start with the Titans with the #1 overall pick. Pete, you say if they stay with that pick, they pretty much have no choice but to take Cam Ward.
By the way, let me preface this by saying this is a mock where I'm trying to predict what they're doing, not what I would do.
Okay.
And I want to clear that up because I do a mock later on in the process of what I would do. And it's usually better, by the way, than the one I'm trying to predict. Yeah, you have to take Cam Ward in this scenario. I just think, as much as I like Will Levis, I know you don't, but I do. I think in this scenario you have to take Cam Ward because if you don't think Will Levis is the guy, and I've talked to people in the Titans organization, he's spending the offseason working with Jordan Palmer. They think he's going to clean up some stuff, so maybe. But this is your question. Are you better for the long term with Abdul Carter as a pass rusher and Will Levis as your quarterback and go back in next year and draft one in a quarterback, rich class? Or do you take Cam Ward and then build your team around him? That's the question you're asking. I think in this scenario, I have to take Cam Ward.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to decide whether you think Cam Ward is a generational talent, which that's an interesting debate because I think he shows some flashes. He's an incredible, athlete. He's got an insane arm. He can make a lot of different arm angles. But on film, he makes a lot of boneheaded decisions. So that, to me, is the biggest issue when it comes to Cam Ward. Can you rein him in a little bit and get him to eliminate some of those mistakes? Because it's one thing in college to get away with them sometimes. You can make up for them going against lesser competition. But in the parity of the NFL, those turnovers will absolutely kill you. So he's got to clean that up. But the arm talent's there. He's the best one in this class. He's the most elusive quarterback. He's a playmaker. I love that about him. But I do think there's some concerns about the decision.
It's interesting because you said his arm strength and you went like this.
That's how he throws half the time.
I had a quarterback coach at the Combine tell me, he goes, are they really going to pick the #1 overall pick is going to be a quarterback who throws like this, throwing motion is like that? And that is, that's a concern. You play the position. That's a concern.
But I think the thing that's unique about him is sometimes he throws like this, sometimes he throws like this to get around.
That's what
he has
Mahomes
different
does.
Arm angles. Exactly. And I think a lot of these quarterbacks do have flaws that 10 years ago would have been seen as, oh, we can't touch that guy. But now because we've seen Patrick Mahomes do all these things with a rubber arm from different angles, people see it as a positive.
How did Tebow throw?
You don't want me to do that imitation. And it probably went into the dirt, too, by the way.
I do like that you used the left hand for Tebow.
Yeah, of course.
That. Hey, so you have Ward going #1, and you have Abdul Carter going #2 to the Browns, but Carter just tweeted that he is going to be the #1 overall pick. And is he wrong or are we wrong? We had it 31 days away. He says 30 days away.
Don't let all this quarterback need talk fool y'all. It's already known who's the best. No quarterback in that discussion. Like I said, the best player goes #1.
What's with that font?
I was wondering that as well.
That looks like the old typewriter font. That's what that looks like.
It's like a ransom note font where you cut out the letters from a magazine.
He's not wrong. He's the best player in this draft. And I think, well, he and Travis Hunter are the two best players in this draft. But if you're looking for a guy to really change the way you play defense, that's who he is. He has that upfield speed, and there's not a lot of speed in this draft through pass rushers. So he is that guy. If you're the Cleveland Browns, you're sitting there making that same decision. Do we think in this scenario, Shedeur Sanders, should we take him or take a generational pass rusher and team him with Myles Garrett? And I think in this scenario, they take the pass rusher.
I think that combo with Myles Garrett on the other side and him on one side will be absolutely unstoppable. He's an insanely talented young player. I think it would have been a lock for #1 had he not had the foot issue, which I don't think is a big deal. And even more so what I love about him, remember he had the shoulder issue in the playoffs, which some players might have, and I know it was the playoffs, some players might have shut it down and said, I have millions of dollars at stake. He went out there, got his body ready to play, still made an impact. He's played through through, some injuries, which are a cause for concern, but it did not impact his availability on the field, and it did not impact his ability to make plays on the field. So I think it's overblown. I think he's absolutely incredible.
Let me ask you this, though. Do you think the Browns would like to see somebody, the Titans or whoever trades up, take Carter #1 so that you have your pick of the quarterbacks?
No. I think Cam Ward might be the guy that they would consider, but they didn't even send the head coach, it doesn't sound like, to the pro day today. So that's a little bit of a red flag. I think the Browns are one of those teams that you get the best player in this scenario, and you're kind of hamstrung by that whole Deshaun Watson situation. So I think you get the best player.
I think the best case scenario for them is the Titans do take Cam Ward #1, and then they get Abdul Carter. It's a no-brainer.
Right.
They can't screw it up.
Or somebody trades up to go get Cam Ward in that scenario. That's also a possibility as well.
Let's go to the Giants at #3 here. They did just get Jameis Winston and sign him to a deal. But, Pete, you do have them taking Shedeur Sanders. It's kind of what we were talking about with the Steelers. Go ahead and get your veteran quarterback for a year, kind of a stopgap, and draft a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, and look, if you don't have the position solved, you got to keep swinging at it and take shots at it. So if Shedeur Sanders is there, do I think he's a clean, prospect? No, I think there's flaws in his game. He doesn't have a great arm. He leaves a lot of clean pockets. He turns, clean pockets into bad ones and takes big losses. But he was hamstrung by his offensive line. They were terrible. So if you're the Giants, in that scenario, you have to take a swing at a quarterback. And it also, you know what it does? You have a staff and a GM that are going to get fired if they don't win. If you take Shedeur Sanders, that might give you some time and keep your job.
I think they're done if Shedeur Sanders doesn't strike gold in the first year, right? I don't think they get that pass. I am torn on this one because I think he's the highest football IQ of this class. He's been around the game his whole entire life. He makes really good decisions from the pocket. Played a Pat Shurmur. They brought him in just so he could get kind of NFL ready, bringing in an NFL mind to get him up to speed, and he ran it flawlessly. Here's the thing about him. He makes great decisions. He's very accurate, but he doesn't have the best arm talent, and he's not the most mobile guy. He will, and like you said, that thing drives me nuts because he did hang on the ball a lot, either trying to make a great play or just would not throw the ball away. And again, that'll set you behind the chains way too much. You've got to get a little bit better from that aspect, getting rid of the ball quickly, not being afraid to throw it away. But I think there's limited upside. And for somebody to take a quarterback at #3 overall, I think that should be Hall of Fame type material. And I think that is probably a pipe dream for Shedeur Sanders to be a Hall of Fame.
By the way, if he does go to the Giants, he's not going to learn how to get rid of the football from Jameis Winston. We know that much.
Although I do think Jameis is really a good balance because you've got Dion, his dad, on one side, who's mentored him. I think Jameis is a really good, great locker room.
But he holds on to the ball for a half hour, too.
I meant how to ingratiate the players, your teammates around.
Absolutely.
I think Jameis is a great mentor.
Pete, you mentioned that you thought the top 2 prospects were Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. Well, Travis Hunter in this mock would be there for the Patriots at 4, but you have them going with Will Campbell, the offensive tackle at LSU, instead.
Well, again, how do you look at Travis Hunter? Is he a wide receiver or is he a corner? I initially thought he was going to be a corner, but I think more and more, and watching his tape, his receiver tape, he can be special playing wide receiver. So if you're the Patriots, do you look at it and say we get a wide receiver who's special, or do we get an offensive lineman to protect our franchise quarterback? And I think in this scenario, you get the offensive lineman. I think Will Campbell, and by the way, I think this is a little too high for him. I don't think he's the end-all. I think he's going to be a really good player. Matt Light, remember Matt Light when he was there? Really good player, but not a generational tackle. But this is, I think, in this scenario, you take the tackle.
I love Will Campbell, but I think you were making an absolute mistake letting a generational talent like Travis Hunter pass you by when you could. This is going to take a unique coach, which I do think Vrabel would be somebody who would embrace Travis Hunter as a two-way player, considering he played a little bit on both sides of the ball. But I think Travis Hunter gives you a weapon on defense and somebody that Drake May can throw it to. But I love Will Campbell. So from that perspective, I think he might be one of the safest picks of the first round. Like, I think he's got a pro mentality. I think he's got a pro physical capabilities. I think he's going to be a 10, 12-year all-pro player, Pro Bowl type player. So I don't have a problem from that perspective, but I think they might regret passing up on Travis Hunter.
Okay, so according to Pete's mock draft, this is where we find Travis Hunter going 5th overall to the Jags. They'd be lucky if he's here in this spot. How much can he help them?
They'd race the card up, I think, in this scenario. Look, he played wide receiver and probably played more wide receiver than corner for them, depending on what they do in the rest of the draft.
So you've come around to the two-way thing.
No, I don't think he's going to. I don't think anybody can play. I don't think anybody can play 2 ways. I think you can spot him in certain situations. In whatever position you pick, he will play that position, and you spot him in on the other side of the ball. Nobody's playing 75 plays in the NFL. They would not make it through 2 seasons if you tried to do that. So he's going to play one or the other. It's just a matter of what you prefer. I think he can play both. I think he can be a great corner. I think he can be a great wide receiver. So if you're Jacksonville and you look at building your team around that quarterback, you have Brian Thomas Jr., you get De'Ami Brown, you add Travis Hunter to it. Now all of a sudden, you have guys who can go. And you're from an offense that was very horizontal, they're going to be very vertical, so it would make a lot of sense if they took him.
I think he's insane. He averaged 114 plays a game in college. He's not going to do that. I would push back and say maybe he could go 70, 75 plays a game, combining offense and defense. And the fact that he will be surrounded by other wide receivers that are pretty good, that's where I think he could thrive. And then I think you feature him on the defensive side of the ball. But I think his package that you use for him on offense can be much bigger than anything we've seen for side of a gadget player. He can be actually a receiver.
One side of the ball and 10 to 15 on the other side.
Yeah.
That's basically what he can do.
All right, let's move on to the Raiders at 6. And this is a surprise, Pete. Going with a running back here at 6 overall.
Again, this is not what he would do.
This is not what I would do.
So this is Ashton Jenaty.
But still, we haven't seen him quite this high.
No, I mean, this would be the highest a running back has gone since Saquon in 2018, if that's the case.
And everybody, and I watched this tape too, he is truly a special player. You don't get clean shots on him. I'm curious to see what his 40 time is. Because he hasn't run it yet, but he doesn't get caught. And, go back to the old Jerry Rice thing. I once said Jerry Rice, I said, you didn't really run a great 40 when you came out. He goes, did you see anybody catch me in the NFL? And I said, no. And he goes, that's the kind of guy Jenaty is. So, and the Raiders need a running back. They need a guy that can be there. Pete Carroll wants to run the football. So I think Jenaty would make a lot of sense here. Keep an eye. Here's another one you keep hearing. The Lions might have an eye on Jenaty as well.
Ooh.
I mean, the Bears, I mean.
I was going to say,
Bears, not the Lions,
kind of
the Bears. Ben Johnson.
Yes.
Ben Johnson.
That would make a ton of sense, especially revamping their offensive line. I think Jenaty is awesome. He's durable. I hope somebody doesn't screw it up because they're worried about a 40 time, because those are some of the most worthless times that are out there. Put on the tape. He pops. He's durable. He's a playmaker. He can catch the ball a little bit out of the backfield, too. I love it.
Can I make a running back rant real quick? There's 15 guys in this draft that are going to be good NFL running backs, which is why I wouldn't take him in the spot. As good as he is, I think there's probably maybe 10 that will be big-time runners and maybe another 5 to 8 that are going to be good starting running backs.
So that is your rant. Because of that, though, we are running a little bit up against the clock. Let's recap Pete Prisco's picks here, 1 through 8. But, Danny, I want you to take a look at the last 2 there. Yep, set down your phone, friend. Mason Graham, look, former wrestler. People love him. Jalon Walker. Do you agree with those 2?
Absolutely. I love Mason Graham. Plays with an incredibly high motor. And Jalon Walker can get after the quarterbacks, too. But Mason Graham, clogging up that middle, incredible player.
He's a little undersized. That's the only
Who cares?
Little undersized. We're going to continue to go through Pete Prisco's first mock draft here. We haven't gotten to any tight ends. Who's going to be the first one off the board? We'll tell you coming up. Welcome back into Spotlight. It is Mock Draft Monday, going through Pete Prisco's very first one here. We're picking up with the Saints at 9. This is a team that needs a lot of things. They need some excitement here. You have them taking a tight end in Tyler Warren.
Well, and again, Jaquan Johnson's back, but they need a real pass-catching threat in the middle of the field to go with him. And I think Warren is a clean player. You can do a lot of things with him. You saw what Penn State did with him, did tons of stuff with him, even had him carrying under center and doing the tush-push and all that stuff. So I do think that
they already have Taysom Hill, don't they?
He's gone.
Is he really? Yeah. The gimmick is gone from New Orleans?
Yeah. But so I think when you look at it, I think you could do a lot of things with him. You missed the gimmick.
You know what I worry about is that people are going to want him to be the next Brock Bowers, and Brock Bowers just had maybe the best rookie season we've seen as a tight end. But I do think this is why a team might reach for him. When you watch the tape of him, it's like, where's Waldo? Like, you're trying to find where he's lined up at wide receiver, lined up at quarterback. You mentioned him under center. He actually snapped the ball at center a couple times. He was that type of gadget player, but I do think that's what Andy Colton-Nicky did, which somebody in the NFL is going to have to do, whether it's the Saints or somebody else. Utilize him. He's an incredible athlete. He's very versatile. If somebody does that, you could have a really solid pick. Might be a little bit higher than I would expect, but it wouldn't surprise me based on the Brock Bowers kind of copycat aspect.
Let's get to the Bears at 10. They've done some work on the offensive line in the offseason. They've had a good offseason, it seems like. But, Pete, you're going back to another offensive lineman here, Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas.
Yeah, and again, you look at their left tackle, Braxton Jones. He's been okay, so maybe they don't do this. But I think they've upgraded across the board. Sometimes you want to change just for the sake of changing. You draft Banks and make him the left tackle. I think that makes sense for the Lions.
For him compared to Will Campbell, like Will Campbell's got a little bit of size stuff, the arms. This guy looks like your prototypical tackle in the NFL, fills out everything. When he walks off the bus, you're like, okay, you can see it. And I do think the play backed it up as well. I think some people have him as the best tackle available in the draft, so I like it from that perspective.
Back-to-back Texas players here with the 49ers at 11, Jahdae Barron, cornerback. Pete, you have them taking him as well. They lost a lot of pieces in the secondary and free agency.
Yeah, and Barron can do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
He can play corner, he can play nickel, he can play safety. And when you look at the 49ers, they lost the safety Hufanga in free agency. They lost the corner in free agency. So why not take a player who can step in, can do a lot of different things. And by the way, he ran a faster time than most people thought he would run. A lot of good Texas football players in this draft, and he's one of them. And I hate Texas because you beat my Sun Devils.
But there was a controversial call at the end of the game, so I'm on your side. I actually thought Arizona State got robbed. But Jahdae Barron is not somebody who's going to get robbed. He's going to get his money's worth, and he's a player who's big, he's fast, he's physical. Sometimes you see secondary players a little bit intimidated by contact. When he does get to contact, he looks to unseat the football from the receiver where he's going with. So I love it from that perspective. I think he's the best secondary player in this class.
All right, so from players from Texas to a player that Pete has going to the state of Texas, that's the Cowboys drafting Michigan cornerback Will Johnson.
Yeah, and there are questions about Will Johnson. Will he run? And, you know, he's going to have his own pro day in April. He wasn't ready to run, and his 40 time will be important for him. There are a lot of guys out there, scouts and personnel people you talk to. How fast is he? Does he play that fast? Cowboys need a corner in the worst way. I think this would make sense if he checks out with this 40 time.
Let's go to the Dolphins at 13 here. And look, Pete, you're having them take Walter Nolen, defensive lineman out of Ole Miss. But the choices, I was going through a lot of mock drafts, are very scattered on what the Dolphins should do with this pick. So why him?
Well, because they need help on both the offensive and defensive line. I know a lot of people think they take a left tackle. I don't necessarily think that. I think Patrick Paul, who they drafted last year, is going to be a really good player. They need help in the middle of that line. You let Wilkins leave. Zach Seiler had a great season, but you need somebody next to him. Nolan's a good, young, physical presence who can push the pocket.
This team spent so much trying to build at the skill positions, going with the speed on the outside, the moves they made for Tyreek Hill and others. They overlooked the interior of both sides of the offensive and defensive line of scrimmage, so this one would shore that position up. He's an incredible player. You know, transferred, had a big year at Ole Miss. He is one of the most physically impressive players from the interior position, so I love it for the Dolphins. How
about an interior offensive lineman going 14th to the Colts, Pete? Why do you believe Tyler Booker could be the best offensive lineman in this draft?
Well, he's a mauler. You know, there are some concerns, and the more I've gone back, even in the last couple of days and watched him, there are concerns about his athletic ability, but he's a physical mauler. When you're the Colts, what do you want to do? You want to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. You want to be physical. They've always been that. They lost their right guard in free agency, so I think this would make a lot of sense for them. You pair him with Quentin Nelson, give you big, powerful guys in the middle of that line.
System he played in Bama, they running quarterback with Jalen Milroe, so they used a lot of quarterback run scheme. You know, that's what they want to do with the Colts. With Anthony Richardson, kind of like what they do in Philly. So I think this is an exceptional way to help get that run game going for Indy, because they've got to give Anthony Richardson some relief, and Jonathan Taylor as well.
The Falcons with the 15th overall pick. Pete has them taking Shemar Stewart, defensive lineman out of Texas A&M. And I think this is a really interesting player in this draft, because you pointed out in your article he wasn't productive. He showed flashes of it. A lot of people are saying, look, high risk, potentially high reward, but some people have this as a top 10 pick.
Yeah, it's interesting because you put on the tape, there's a couple things that catch your eye. One, he didn't make a lot of plays. Two, he was used in a strange situation. It wasn't always used the proper way at Texas A&M. He was more of a read-react guy. But three is, he's also, when you put the tape on, I watch it, he's the last guy to get his hand off the ground, which is always concerning to me. That means he hasn't been taught football yet. So there's a high ceiling there, but there's a low floor. So I think you're taking a little bit of a risk. Falcons need a pass rusher.
Oh, it's a red
flag next to Shemar Stewart, because this is one thing that drives me nuts. This is a pet peeve of mine.
You can do a better job. You got an F in art.
Because when have we started to hear about Shemar Stewart? From the combine and the workouts, because he blows you away. And it's like, oh my gosh, this guy looks amazing, and he can run. And look at his shuttle times, and look at his get off on during drills that you can practice for. On game tape, disappeared somewhat, did not match the level of production that you would expect from somebody who's so athletic.
But they reduced a little bit, and he had to read, and he wasn't just an up-the-field guy. So the skills are there. It's just a matter of can he, again, high ceiling, low floor. It's a buyer beware for sure.
I think we should get you some. Like, we should definitely get those. It's like little
red flag was a little harsh. I didn't have yellow. He stole my highlighter, or I would have done
Danny
yellow.
lives right on the beach in Delray, so he can just take one of those red flags right off the beach line and bring it in. Let's get to the Cardinals at 16. Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman, another Michigan man.
Yeah, and they signed Tomlinson, a free agent, but Tomlinson's 31, going to be 32, and so they got to get a young guy in the middle of that defense. I think Grant is outstanding. You put on the tape of him, and you watch Grant and Graham. They push the pocket. He's going to be a big-time player, a little bit heavier than Graham. Cardinals need that in the middle of their line.
Something just mildly concerning is with these two together, it's such a mismatch going against most of the teams they play against, really helps them. In the NFL, you're not going to be able to have that type of advantage unless maybe you're an Abdul Carter with Myles Garrett on the other side and the outside. But in the interior, mildly concerning, but I love what I saw on film from Kenneth Grant.
So 3 defensive linemen in the last 4 picks for Pete Prisco as we recap the first half of his mock draft. No team with multiple picks in the first round this season, at least not as of now. So let's get to the second half of this draft. So far, only 2 quarterbacks off the board. Will we see another? And if so, when? Might it be Jaxson Dart, the record setter from Ole Miss? We are continuing on with Pete Prisco's first-round mock draft, his very first mock draft, as Amanda ices her completely blown-out left knee.
I'm almost done.
Yeah,
Commercial break wasn't long enough. All right, I'm ready to go. Let's go. Okay. Number 17. Yes, what do we got?
It's the Bengals. It's Derrick Harmon, defensive lineman out of Oregon. And Pete, they've whiffed when trying to draft that position quite a bit.
Yeah, they have, and it's still a problem, and that's why their defense was part of the reason their defense was so bad last year. Harmon's one of those guys that can get up the field. He's an attacker, can play in the run game, and I think he would fill a big need for the Bengals. Here's the other part of the equation. Okay, I'm going to give you a little hint down the road for the better than team. There are 2 guys on that defensive line that play next to Harmon. Caldwell's a big 350-pound defensive tackle, and Birch is a defensive end. Those 2 guys are really outstanding. And, in fact, I prefer them to Harmon.
Well, Jordan Birch, I thought, was the better player for Oregon's defense. But I think Derrick Harmon's one of those guys, again, physically impressive. Really, when you look at him, when you see him at a combine or you see him at a workout setting, he's going to pop. But he did have pretty good production. Again, some of these guys, it's really hard to project when they're not surrounded by such great talent. They did step up. Jordan Birch missed a couple games. Harmon had an opportunity, did step it up in those situations. So I think it's a little bit of a reach here, and I'm with you on the Jordan Birch, too.
An interesting pick for the Seahawks at 18, and I'm only saying this because this player is here. You have them taking Armand Membou, offensive tackle out of Missouri. Tom Fornelli has him at 5. I haven't seen him past 7, and here he is at 18 for you.
Well, here's part of the problem with him. He's might be the most gifted athletically of all the players at tackle position. He doesn't finish. And in talking to guys around the league and watching his tape, I want a guy who's going to knock your head into the ground every single play. He doesn't do that. Now, whether he can learn to do that or want to do that, that's a whole nother thing. But right now, athletically, he's phenomenal. I just want to see more nasty, more toughness, more drive a guy's head into the ground when you have a chance to do it.
The athleticism's off the charts. Remind you, Tristan Wirfs was such a buzzworthy guy when he was coming out of college. Similar type of buzz around this player. He runs the 40, one of the fastest 40s we've seen at 330+ pounds. But I would like to see him a little bit better with some of his technique. I think still he's more of a raw player. I think Tristan Wirfs was more complete when he was coming out. And he's more of a raw type player.
Nastier, too.
Yeah, definitely nastier. And you want somebody that has a little bit of that edge to him on the offensive line. But we'll see if somebody can develop it out of him. Yeah.
Pete, how about the Bucs at 19? You have them taking Jihaad Campbell out of Alabama.
Again, one of the flaws of their defense over the last couple of years has been the inability to cover people at linebacker. And they've been hit a bunch by it. They got rid of Devin White because he was not playing the defense. Savasier Dennis got hurt last year. He would have been a part of it. He's coming off an injury. And we know that Levante David can still do it, not the same as he used to, but he's probably in the final year of his career. So get Campbell, who can do a lot of things. He might be the prototypical, can play off the ball, can rush the passer. He can do so many things. I love this pick for the Bucs.
I do, too. He's a very athletic player. I think he can run with your bigger tight ends. He's physical enough to handle those. Your smaller receivers, backs coming out of the backfield, he can run with them. Physical at the point of attack. So I think this is a player that would fit perfectly. And you're right, Levante David can't play forever.
Chris, can I get a drum roll?
Can I get a what?
Okay, I don't know about that. Are you ready for this? Broncos at 20. Oh, we're we're good.
You asked
we don't
for
need
it.
to break it.
We didn't to that extent, we didn't need it.
Wait, here we go. Another running back, Omarion Hampton, and this is 2 running backs you have now in the first round.
Well, we keep hearing about Sean Payton saying he needs a joker. He needs a joker in his offense. He still hasn't got the joker yet. Well, he has the joker if he gets Hampton. Hampton might end up being the best of this class. As much as we like Jenaty now, this kid can take it, though. He's a track guy who can run, the home run guy. That's what he has, that home run speed. He also is a willing, tough runner, and he's willing to block, which, you know, Sean Payton wants that in his offense. So I think Hampton to the Broncos would make a lot of sense.
The last 2 years, who's one of the more consistent running backs we've seen in all of college football for North Carolina. I think he brings an exceptional NFL-ready type of skill set from the running back position. Can catch it out of the backfield, too. It could be that Swiss Army knife. It's all a question of, are the Broncos going to do something that a lot of teams haven't been willing to do and go up there and make a reach for a running back?
So 2 running backs in your top 20, Pete, and you said that you think 10 to 15 guys could be legit running backs in the NFL. Is this the best running back class you've seen in a long time?
It's a great class. It really is. And different styles, too. You have a guy, Smith, at SMU, who can catch the ball out of the backfield, third down back. Tootin from Virginia Tech. People aren't even talking about him. That kid is going to be a
4.29 or something
And he's
crazy?
tough, too. Yeah. He can run between the tackles. You got the kid at Iowa, who doesn't have great speed, but he can make people miss. There are so many running backs in this class, which is why, personally, I wouldn't take him in the top 20, but I could see teams
What
doing
about
it.
Scadaboo?
That's what I was going to ask.
Look, I love Scadaboo. Kudos to you, baby. You took us to the playoffs, but I think he's more of a 4th or 5th round pick. I'm curious to see how he can get outside on the edge. Look, he's tough, he's physical, he can do a lot of things, but can you get to the edge?
So just as many running backs in Pete's top 20 as quarterbacks, 2. But at 21, the 3rd quarterback off the board, and it's to the Steelers, who might still go out and get Aaron Rodgers, met with the Steelers on Friday. It's Jaxson Dart, 21st overall at Ole Miss.
The Steelers have to address this position at some point in the draft. Whether you get Aaron Rodgers or not, you have to address it. If it's at 21, you like Dart, you take him there. If it's wait to the 2nd or 3rd round, which I would do, take a McCord or a Quinn Ewers, somebody like that, I think you have to address the position. You have to get a young quarterback. So in this mock, the way it played out, I'm taking Jaxson Dart. By the way, I don't love Jaxson Dart like a lot of people do, but if you're the Steelers and you have quarterback issues, you got to keep taking shots at it.
I think you like him more than Emery Hunt, who doesn't have him in his top 5.
That's true.
I don't know what Emery Hunt's watching.
I don't know what Emery Hunt what he's watching.
Because I have Jaxson Dart either equal or ahead of Shedeur Sanders as far as, and a lot of that has to do, when we talked about Shedeur earlier, I felt like there was a ceiling of what he could be. Jaxson Dart has been a quarterback who has been consistently getting better and better and better in the 3 years that he started in the SEC, was durable, didn't miss any time, and what I saw was a quarterback who evolved in his game, and I think he still has another level to go. I think he's more mobile. I think he has a stronger arm than Shedeur Sanders, so I think this is the only problem is I don't know if I would take him here. I think Cam Ward is the only true first round quarterback that is there, but understanding that teams overdraft. For the Steelers, have to make a pick for somebody. They're stuck without a quarterback. We'll see what happens, but I do think that it's a good pick from that perspective.
If they had Rodgers, they could let him sit for a year because he has to adjust to the NFL game. It's different than what he does at Ole Miss. It's entirely different. And tell Emery that there are contacts you can order online. To get
oh my gosh! Let me ask you this: so we're looking at the quarterbacks here, and you guys and everybody, even Emery mentioned, just kind of how weak this class is. What are the teams? Because you mentioned the Steelers, they have to address the quarterback position. Which are the teams that we're looking at in the first round that have to address that position?
At some point, Titans do, the Giants do, the Jets do, the Steelers do.
Raiders?
We're getting to a lot of quarterbacks
Raiders
here.
This year.
Well, Raiders traded
So
for
you're
Geno.
saying this year all those teams have to?
No, well, at some point in this draft, you got to take
At some point in this draft,
At
not
some point in this
necessarily
draft,
the first round.
And here's the other part of that equation. Next year's quarterback draft is supposedly loaded. I mean, you're going to have guys all over the place in that draft, so you're thinking you could wait and maybe get them next year.
And I think there's some pretty good value quarterbacks. I know you love Kyle McCord. I'm big on him, too. Guys, we'll see with Tyler Shuck where he goes. He's a big physical guy. But I think it's going to be interesting because I would rather have maybe a Quinn Ewers in the 2nd or 3rd round or a Kyle McCord in the 2nd or 3rd round over these guys where the weight and expectations of you've got to play. I just don't think the value is there as some of these first-round quarterbacks.
I'm with you. 6 quarterbacks went in the first round last year. If I set it at 3.5 right now, you taking the over or the under?
I'm taking the under. The only other possibility would be if the kid from Louisville went.
Shuck
went, but I don't think he would.
I would go under, too.
Yeah.
And if I could get plus money on under 2.5, I might take that.
Really?
Yeah. But again, I am still trying to get my mind around some of the quarterbacks that they have reached
I'm with
for.
you.
It's still hard for me to grasp, but every year they do it anyway. So maybe save your money and do the 3.5 and say over, because they have the newest trend over the last decade has been, if you need a quarterback, you get him wherever it is, and you worry about the contract and the guaranteed money later.
Moving on in Pete Prisco's mock draft. By the way, you can find the entire thing, CBSSports.com. Chargers at 22. You have them taking a tight end and a Colston Loveland. And it's interesting, in your article, you mentioned he may be the best in this class, but you have him behind Tyler Warren.
Because in talking to people around the league, a lot of guys have Warren ahead of him. This kid is a great pass-catching tight end. I mean, Warren was gimmicked up and did some good things, but this kid's a pure pass-catching tight end. And by the way, who recruited him to Michigan? I mean, you know who recruited him to Michigan? It was Jim Harbaugh, and so he's familiar with him. They need a tight end. It just would make a lot of sense.
He had a great year 2 years ago when he had a decent quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. This past year, he was, really limited, injured, missed a couple games, but also the quarterback play was atrocious. They really struggled at that position, so I think it hurt some of his production. But I think Jim Harbaugh is somebody who would love to have him. I know he loves the offensive line, which he took last year, but I think this is, and I think he's a better blocker potentially than Tyler Warren as well. More of a
draft is in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. The Packers drafting 23rd overall, and Pete has him taking Mykel Williams, the edge out of Georgia. Do you think he'll be there this late in the first round?
He looks the part. And everybody thought he would go into the season and be a top 10 pick, and he didn't play it. And so there are concerns about him. But you look at him physically, he's exactly what the Packers would like in their pass rushers. He's a big power player who can get after the quarterback. It just didn't translate to what we expected it would be this year. Why? Who knows, but there is a lot of talent there.
I'm sure some teams are like, hey, if we don't take him, Howie Roseman's going to take him for the Philadelphia Eagles, so they might want to get him to continue that tradition of drafting Georgia players. But I am with you. It was a little bit, came in with so much hype and expectations, and I don't know if some players get to a point where they're out of the national championship race or they've made a certain amount of money and they start almost protecting themselves. You can sometimes see it on tape. I think that might be what's going on here. And then all of a sudden you get a player in the NFL and he's playing for his next contract and you see the true player unleashed of the potential what they could be. But I'm with you on the Mykel Williams. Wasn't as dominant this past year as he was 2 years ago.
Following up the Packers is the Vikings at 24 here. And we've seen a couple risers because of the combine, and definitely this next guy. I want to make sure I'm saying his name right. Say his name for me.
No, I'm not saying it.
Nick Emmanwori.
Yeah,
we apologize. I think that's right. I think that's good.
Emmanwori.
One of the huge darlings of the combine, been described as an athletic freak. What can he bring to this Vikings team?
You look at the Vikings, Cam Bynum's out. Harrison Smith is on his last legs, so you have to get a safety. And in Brian Flores' defense, he wants his safety to be able to do a lot of different things. And I think he can do that. He's, he a lot of people compare him to Derwin James. I think there's a little high praise for him. He's a good player. I don't see Derwin James just yet. But there are a lot of skills there, and he would fit in what they want to do.
Everyone's jaws were dropping. Not only the 40 time, the vertical jump, like every test was out there. He was probably the MVP of the combine, which does concern me. But I do think he played really well at South Carolina too. Like the film did match it. Yeah, so you were confirmed with what you saw on tape. So I think he's a pretty good value pick here.
All right, we only have a handful of picks left from Pete Prisco in his first round mock draft, and taking a look at the 17 through 24 that we just went through. Have we seen any wide receivers yet?
No.
No wide receivers yet.
There will be wide receivers picked before this.
And a lot of people will, one in particular, which you have left off.
Tetairoa McMillan out of Arizona. Is that biased because you're an ASU guy?
No, I hate Texas guys.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, Matthew Golden is still on the board as well.
I love this Texas team.
He does have both of them going as we close things out. Who's got them and why? Next.
Spotlight here on a Monday, which means it is Mock Draft Monday. We are almost done. We're going to pick up with pick 25. That's the Texans. But so far, Danny, I want to know, give Pete a grade.
Oh.
On how he's been doing.
It's been pretty cordial out here. I would say, again, this is not what he would do. This is what he's going with. I'd give it a B+, solid B+. Yeah.
I mean, it's the first mock.
Noah's mad, too, our producer. He wants me to give him an F.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we still have a few more picks to
That's right.
How do you give somebody an F for their mock? They're trying to figure out who's going to go
with it. You do it to Ryan Wilson all the time.
No, I never give him an F for a mock. Now, if it's who they should take mock, then I would give him an F.
Okay. Oh, that's me. Let's pick it up with the Texans. Sorry, coming in at 25. The Grey Zabel out of North Dakota State. What do we need to know about this young man here going to the Texans?
Can play guard, can play tackle, can play center. And when you look at the Texans, they have major problems on their offensive line, and they think they've addressed them in a big way by getting Cam Robinson and Trent Brown and Ed Ingram. Well, they still need help, and I think any guy who could play a couple different positions is important for him. It would make a lot of sense.
I think there used to be a detriment if you played at an FCS level, if you played at North Dakota State, but they've had multiple players now who have made the jump and have not dropped off, so that would not concern me with a player like Grey Zabel, especially at the interior. Not to say it's easy to play on the outside, but I do think size doesn't become as big of an issue, so I think he'll make the transition pretty
Plus
smoothly.
had a good week at the Senior Bowl.
And they need to get C.J. Stroud some protection up front.
25 picks in, and Pete Prisco does not have a single wide receiver going until 26 in the LA Rams. And this makes sense, Pete. You said you move on from Cooper Kupp, who's now in Seattle because he wasn't fast enough. So you have him going out and getting the fastest guy in this draft.
Well, and they get Devontae Adams, who's not fast either. And so the offense is slow. And if you look at the Rams' offense, they're slow. The wide receivers are slow. They don't run that well. Kyren Williams, the running back, isn't fast. And so they need speed. Teams defend them that way. Matthew Golden can fly.
4.29.
And some people say he doesn't play to that speed. I watched him play to that speed live. So I love him. I think it would be a great pick for the Rams.
I do too. I like him a lot too. This offseason was all about Isaiah Bond coming to Texas. He was supposed to be the leading receiver, but Matthew Golden quietly just assumed that role, became Quinn Ewers' favorite target, stepped up for the big plays whenever they needed to make them. I think he can absolutely blaze. I think he's got good hands. He's a pretty smooth route runner too. Playing in Sark's system out there. He's got a lot of NFL concepts. He's been treated like a pro, so I love this pick here.
Let me ask you this, because you've said we're going to see wide receivers go before this. You also said that this is not what you would do, but you think other teams are going to do. So somewhat contradicting yourself. Why haven't we seen a wide receiver up until
just the way this played out, I didn't have a wide receiver going because there's a lot of teams that don't need wide receivers, and so you got to force the pick. Like Tet McMillan, for example. If the
who we haven't seen yet and people are in love with.
If the quarterbacks don't go 1 through 4 and Jacksonville's sitting there at 5, they might be facing a situation where they might take a wide receiver. They might take Tet McMillan in that scenario. So it could change the way things play out, but you will see a receiver go before this.
It's interesting because this receiver class, I think it's very deep. We were talking about this during the break. We were talking on the Cover 3 podcast, and we're like, hey, what positions do you like? I said, there's a lot of value at the wide receiver position, but there's not there's not a Ryan Williams, there's not a Jeremiah Smith who teams are just going to be salivating over saying, man, we can't wait to take this kid in the top 3. So it is going to be interesting to see which one is the first off the board. Tet McMillan seems to be a consensus, but I don't think he stands out and jumps out that much above anybody else.
We're starting to get to the point of the draft where these teams, they go so far in the postseason and just keep falling up short. And we have seen that time and time again with the Ravens. You have them taking edge rusher Mike Green out of Marshall here. You also mentioned the offensive line could be in play here. So what do you think the Ravens should do, and how much do you like your Mike Green pick?
They need to get a pass rusher. Whether it's Mike Green or whoever, they need to find a pass rusher, in large part because Van Noy is up in the age and Owe is an unrestricted free agent after this season. So you can't just keep, playing and not have that elite pass rusher. So I think you need to take swings at it. And the Ravens are usually good at finding those guys. I think they would take a pass rusher.
Yeah, I think they've got to figure out the issue of how to stop all these other quarterbacks in the AFC that they're going to have to go through in order to get that Super Bowl. They've got the offense figured out. They've shored up that position, but they've got to get somebody to help. And they do a great job running the football time of possession, but they've got to get somebody that can wreak havoc coming off the edge. I think Mike Green would fill that role.
To the Lions at 28, they lost Kevin Zeitler after just 1 year with the team. He's now with the Titans, so you have him going with another interior offensive lineman here to help fill the role, Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State.
Now, he's an interior offensive lineman. That's where you play him, but he also moved to left tackle late in the year when Simmons went down and did a really nice job over there. So there is, and when you look at the Lions, Decker, the left tackle, is not a kid anymore, so there could be something where you pick him, play him at right guard this year, maybe a couple of years, and then you can move him to left tackle down the road. I think he's going to be an all-world guard. I think he's physical. I think he gets after people. I think this would be, and by the way, he's one of the best kids in terms of being around football. He loves it and he lives it. I think he'd be a great pick for the Lions.
There's a saying in the NFL, the more you can do, it means the more you're going to play, the more you're going to be around. He was shuffling around along that offensive line for Ohio State because they had so many issues. And the Lions are very clear-cut on what they want to be. They realize the importance of the offensive line, especially interior, so this makes perfect sense.
Going to the Commanders at 29. That was a Cinderella team. I think it's safe to call them that this past season here. Jaden Daniels, a lot fell on his shoulders. This is where we find Tet McMillan, doubtful that he will likely be in this position. So if you are the Commanders at 29, are you still looking, as you mentioned, deep receiver class for a receiver regardless?
I think in this scenario they would take him here. You need a young receiver to develop with Jayden Daniels, and he's a different receiver than what they have now in that group right there. And they lost De'Ami Brown, so you got to add another receiver. I think Tet McMillan. The concern with Tet McMillan is the 40 time. He's got great hands. He knows how to run routes. He knows how to come back to the football. He does a lot of great things. But what about that 40 time? It's 4.55, 4.5. Guys had him timed at 4.57, 4.55. If you look at
Did he not show? Did he have pro day already?
Yeah, he did.
And he wasn't it like a 4.48?
No, that was somebody put that out there, and it was not accurate.
Oh, it wasn't true. Okay.
They're handheld times, and when you talk to teams around the league, they were 4.55, 4.57, 4. If you look at the history of guys who have run that time, and go back, and there haven't been a lot of guys who've had great success running that time who have been high draft picks. So I think there is some concern. Washington would love this pick.
6'4", I love a big physical receiver. I'm not as concerned about the 40 time. I've held all offseason. I think the Washington Commanders should go all in around Jayden Daniels. They make the move for Laramie Tunsil, try to shore up the offensive line. I think Terry McLaurin would be a great mentor-type figure for a young receiver in that receiving room. So I like the play from let's give Jayden Daniels every offensive weapon to let him continue to flourish as a quarterback.
Worst-case scenario, he's probably Drake London. Right? Mm-hmm. So you get that out of him, you'd be okay with it.
All right, let's get to the Bills at 30. Is cornerback their biggest need? You have them taking Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky.
Game changers on defense. They don't have a lot of them. They just don't. In talking to a lot of Bills people, that's one thing that stood out to them. They turn the ball over, they play sound defense, but they don't have game changers. And Maxwell Hairston, to me, might end up being the best corner in this class. He can fly, he can cover, he's a willing tackler. He'd make a lot of sense for the Bills.
He was on a pretty bad Kentucky team this year, so I think a lot of people from college football standpoint didn't get to see him play a lot, but his skill set will translate to the next level, and I think he could absolutely be one of those players we're seeing getting a massive second contract one day, being able to, shut down. Again, this AFC, there's so many quarterbacks across the board. You need somebody who can make those plays, and he, did an incredible job as a ball-hawking corner.
Just two more picks here. Pete Prisco, we're going to the Chiefs at 31, and you have them taking Josh Simmons, and you said he could potentially be one of the best linemen in this class. He is coming off a torn ACL, so my man, I feel ya.
That's right. He can call you for advice.
Yeah. He's the best offensive lineman in this class based on ability.
Okie dokie.
I think you watch him play. He was magnificent before he got hurt last year. But again, he's coming off the ACL. And so how much does he love football? That's something you also hear. But I think from a pure playing standpoint, he's the best offensive lineman in this class.
I was really concerned when they did lose him. Again, we were talking about Ohio State having to shuffle the offensive line because they did lose him. Maybe one of the more physically impressive bodies that's out there. He does do a good job of just swallowing up edge rushers, defensive ends, whoever's coming after the quarterback. But I do wonder how it does, go at the next level. It's not easy, you would know, coming off an ACL injury.
Add a couple more on.
And you need to kind of get into camp and kind of get into things. It's always hard coming off a major injury like that when you're the new guy on the team and you're in the training room all the time. You're not going through some of the drills. It's a big jump both mentally and physically, so curious to see how it would pan out.
But they signed a left tackle that can play right away, so this is a future pick. One other thing, I watched the play where he actually got hurt. There was no contact, just put his foot in the ground and that thing came out.
Was there any contact with you on the ski slope?
I mean, there's contact with my skis in the snow.
Okay.
Does that count? It was no contact between me and another person or a tree.
He put his foot in the ground and that thing buckled.
All right. Eagles at 32, finishing up Pete Prisco's first-round mock draft, his very first, and it's Josh Connerly out of Oregon. They seem to be good at tackle for now, so is this just a luxury pick for this team?
Lane Johnson can't play forever. He's getting up at the end. He's talked about retirement already, and if you're the Eagles, they lost Fred Johnson, their backup tackle, to Jacksonville. They tried to bring him back on a one-year deal. If you're the Eagles, you get a guy for the future, and he fits. He's athletic. He's perfect for what they do.
I'm with you on Lane Johnson. He's kind of been hinting at it with Kelsey gone another year. Yeah, he's just kind of, you wonder how much longer he can go. I do think this is a luxury pick, though. They've done such a good job drafting. It's one of the strengths of the organization. You can't pay everybody, and we've seen them lose a couple pieces, on the defense this offseason. But I think this is a play for the future for sure.
Well, there you have it. 3 quarterbacks in the first round for Pete Prisco. Only 2 wide receivers, and they both come after pick number 25. We'll be back to recap and wrap things up after this. Pete Prisco just put together his very first mock draft of the draft season. We're only a month away. You can find the full thing on CBSSports.com. Pete, you've got more mocks coming up, though, correct? Tell us about it.
I have another mock in 2 weeks. Then I have a final mock the day of the draft, but I also have the who they should mock 2 days before the draft. So
that's what you would do?
Yes.
If you were in their position?
Yes.
Was there anything about putting this one, though, together as you saw it unfold that surprised you?
The fact that the wide receivers fell.
Yeah, you didn't have a single wide receiver go until 25.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll fall that far, but again, the way it played out, they did. I would be shocked if they fell that far. Tetairoa McMillan especially, I'd be shocked if he fell that far when they actually do it again. But again, you talk to people around the league and you hear things and you move guys around based on what you hear and talk to people you trust and you try and get a better gauge on it. Look, 9 times out of 10, who they should take mock is better than the one I do because I don't.
Because you know better than everyone.
It's exactly right.
Let me ask you something, because the Jaxson Dart to the Steelers, if they do get Aaron Rodgers, aren't they trying to go all in with him where they could use a player who's going to contribute rather than look for the future at quarterback?
Or you're trying to figure it out for a year until the quarterback's ready to play. You know what I mean? You could get away with
Then
that.
why bring in Aaron
Because
Rodgers?
they would be in the exact same position, though, a year from now.
42-year-old Aaron Rodgers would be a good mentor. Probably 28-year-old Aaron Rodgers would not.
But I think if you're signing Aaron Rodgers, you want to make a run for the Super Bowl. So give him, you want to try to make this team into a playoff team.
I don't think they're making a run for the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers.
Maybe deep playoff run. The Super Bowl's a little bit optimistic.
That's a little rich.
So 3 quarterbacks in the first round. Pete, you said you would take the under 3.5 on quarterbacks. Shuck would be the only other guy you would put in the first round. Danny says he might even go under 2.5 if you get plus money on that. First Pick podcast, Ryan Wilson holding it down. This is the time of year where they're going team by team. The latest, Carolina Panthers